Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are doing our 2026 collection recap so far. You might remember me doing a similar video last year, I think at the end of June, that basically recapped all of the collections that came out from January through June, sort of as a refresher for the months to come, because at the end of the year, you might know that I do my nail polish awards video. So like I said, this is a nice little refresher just to see what has come out in the year so far, because as I'm sure you know, there are a ton of collections and brands out there in general, a lot of them releasing on a monthly basis or every other month. As a disclaimer, this video is not going to cover every single collection that has come out because there are just so many that I personally can't keep track of them all. So I am mainly going to be recapping the brands that I have shared on my channel, which is still a lot. So without further ado, let's look back at the releases. So starting in the month of January, we actually had a decent number of releases, which was surprising to see because I feel like every January is always so slow because, I mean, it's after the holiday season, people are kind of done with their shopping. And when it comes to nail polish releases, the only kind of releases we usually see are like a Valentine's Day here and there. But this year we had 6 Valentine's Day releases and 1 spring release. And just for reference, last year there were only 3 brands that I remember having Valentine's Day releases. So it was just crazy to see double that for this year. One of the first releases was Fauve Cosmetics Love and Disdain Part 2, which was a trio that had 2 thermals and 1 topper. If you're not familiar with Fauve, their collections are always inspired by specific art styles or artists or just specific artworks. Browsing her website is always really fun because she usually has like the polish and then the painting for the inspiration next to it. So while at first glance, you know, these polishes might not seem super cohesive, when you look at them next to the inspiration, it makes sense. The thermals were great, but obviously my standout was the topper. It was just so freaking cute, easily one of my favorites so far. Then we had Island P come out with their Flower Shop collection, which was a little quad of studio color creams. We do normally see Island P do a little Valentine's Day release, but it historically has been like a trio. So this time getting a quad was exciting because we get an extra polish, and it was a bit different being this like floral, you know, romantic bouquet inspiration. I feel like just looking at the polishes themselves, like they could work for Valentine's Day, but also just give general spring vibes too. For a more on the nose Valentine's Day release, Cracked gave us their last minute gifts collection, which again, they are another brand that does do their yearly Valentine's Day releases, but historically their collections were always bigger. I want to say like 6 polishes, and 3 of them would be like the cutesy romantic vibes, while the other 3 were kind of darker anti-Valentine's Day. But this year we got a quad, and I would say they generally were more on like the cutesy theme. I guess Drugstore Chocolate is a little bit darker, being the red magnetic, and we did also get a bonus shade, which was a darker red cream. So I don't know if I really want to count like the bonus shades or like the jelly of the months in the releases because they just feel like, you know, kind of separate from them. But there were a few extra releases from Cracked this month as well. Then Glitch Lacquer gave us their Aphrodite's Kiss collection, which was a massive lineup that I believe consisted of mostly shimmers. They were so dreamy, so ethereal, a beautiful color palette. I think there was like a lot of blues and pinks and just so, I love the vibes of them. But for a 180, Prison Parade gave us the Bloodlust collection, which I think were 5 or maybe 6 polishes. There was 1 topper, but for the actual polishes, they consisted of mainly shimmers and then 1 flaky bomb in these really dark, seductive, vampy shades, like literally inspired by vampires, which I thought was so fun to see because whenever I think of vampires, I just always think of Halloween. So seeing this vampire theme for Valentine's Day was just so refreshing. And the last Valentine's Day release that I have was Holo Taco's Magnetic Attraction collection, which, if you can't tell by the name, consisted of magnetic polishes. Most of them were in these like lighter, you know, sort of flirty romantic colors, but there was one darker shade with Playing the Field, and we also did get a topper, which was called Sweetheart Taco. And like I mentioned before, I did have one just spring collection that came out in January, and that was Sylvan Claw's Succulent Garden. This was really fun to see because it was just such a colorful and vibrant lineup for January. It was a mixed variety of finishes with like hollow, jelly flakies, glitters. We even got like a number of thermals in this lineup as well. I believe there was a topper in here, so a really nice mix up and so much color for the middle of winter. So we kicked off the year pretty strong and we slowed down a considerable amount in February. I only have 3 collections and 2 of them were from ILNP. The first one was the Playground collection, which was a 6-piece lineup of these really bright, fun kind of primary colors in these different finishes, obviously having this almost like kidcore aesthetic. So it was just really cutesy, very playful, but for something a little bit more sophisticated, they also gave us the Brunch collection, which was another quad of studio color creams. And these were cute. Like, I like the inspiration, but the colors were a little more muted than what I was hoping for, but they did also work really well for the month of February, being like this perfect, you know, winter to spring transitional color palette. And the last collection that I had for February was Cracked Polish's Maxin and Relaxin collection, which I believe was for Monique's birthday. Based off of the name, it obviously has this more like serene, laid back sort of vibe. The color palette was really interesting because we did have some darker shades, which, you know, initially I'm not always like a big fan of, because for February I love like all the pinks, you know, all the Valentine's Day vibes, but I actually really did love this lineup because it still felt very like cool and wintry, which is still fitting for the month, but the lighter shades just also had this sort of like, you know, romantic self-care kind of spa day feel. Now moving on to March, we started to see even more spring collections come out. So the first one that I have is Goodnight Polish's Love is a Battlefield. This was a pretty small one. It was just a quad of these mixed finish formulas, a couple of flakies, some of them I think dried down matte. Another quad that we got was from Mooncat, which was also their first release of the year in March, and that was their Band of Misfits Volume 2 collection. Technically, this was like a limited edition release, but I still count it as a release, so we're including it here. And their Band of Misfits collections are basically like their prototype polishes, so kind of similar vibes to some existing shades from their catalog. Like their one thermal that came out called the Firebird was pretty similar to the Doppelganger, or maybe Dark Omens, I forget, but like one of those. And then there were some like, you know, metallic shades that I think were similar to the metallics from the Welcome to Paradise collection. But we also got a new topper that was like this rainbow pastel iridescent flaky, super, super gorgeous. And then we got the Holo Taco Jelly Sandwich collection, which were their first ever jelly polishes. I think there were 5 jellies and then 2 toppers in that lineup. So it was like, you know, a nice variety generally. We also got Glitch's Groundbreaking collection, which was their spring release. And this had a beautiful lineup of shades and finishes. I feel like there were a lot of flakies in this one and a lot of like crelly based kind of polishes too, which I'm always a fan of. For even more flakies, we got Fauve's Reflections of Monet collection, which were just these absolutely stunning flaky bomb polishes. Well, the majority of them were flakies. I think there were like 3 or 4, but then there was also at least one other magnetic and then a topper as well. But if you couldn't tell, I thought the standouts from that lineup were the flaky polishes. Then we got Cracked Polish's Music is Life collection, which was actually a collab with Alyssa from Polished Bookworm. This was a massive like 8 or 10 piece lineup. There were a ton of different finishes, different shades that were mainly in this sort of like muted, almost fall kind of color palette. But for a more springy lineup, we had Olive Ave's Seedlings collection, which was a smaller, I think 5-piece lineup of these cream polishes in these really light, like very airy kind of colors of mainly blues and greens. And the last collection that I have for March was a 180 from that, and that was Prison Parade's Sugar Rush collection, which was a 7-piece lineup of these neon polishes. These were so fun. Like, I always love a nice neon lineup, and we always see that for like the summertime, so it was just nice to get that a little bit earlier with this release. Then for the month of April, the first release that I have is from Nail Polies with their Freshly Picked collection. If you were keeping up with Nail Polies, you might remember that I think towards the end of last year, they had to close down their shop for a while, but they came back with a fresh rebrand that still feature these hand sculpted little charms on top of the caps instead of being the entire cap. And this lineup consisted of these really soft, springy jellies, all inspired by these picnic vibes. Island P then gave us the Pop collection, which was a all magnetic lineup inspired by soda. So we had some really vibrant colors, a darker shade with the cherry cola one, and a silver magnetic topper. Next up, I have Tyler's Trinkets Polished Joy collection, which was a collab with Jeremy from Aculid Nails. This was a really fun lineup of just these different finishes, obviously inspired by shades that Jeremy picked out, some of his favorites, with a super fun rainbow glitter topper as well. Then we saw Mooncat's first official release of the year with their Deadly by Nature collection. This was a super cool lineup, obviously inspired by nature, like flora and fauna. That's very dangerous. If you're an arachnophobe, I wouldn't recommend like searching up the collection or their inspiration or marketing, but it's really cool. Like, I loved seeing the polishes next to their inspirations, and this lineup just felt so Mooncat in the best way. Then from Cracked, we got another collab. This was with Audrey Swatches, and the collection was called the Bramble Cafe. This was another massive lineup, and it was obviously inspired by like little cafe foods and drinks. I feel like there were a decent amount of creams in this lineup, but also a couple of fun finishes too. Oh my god, I almost forgot too that we started the month of April with Holo Taco's Haute Garbage collection, which was their April Fool's release. If you don't remember, last year they came out with the shade Born Ugly on April Fool's, and this year we basically just got like an extension of that with shades in similar colors but just different finishes. And then a couple of weeks later, they gave us the Holo Royalty collection for the year, which was called Garden Variety, which is so funny considering the lineup consisted of teals and purples in some different finishes. Then we have another collection from Nail Polies. This was their Dazzling Desert lineup, which obviously are inspired by these little succulents, which were the little charms on the caps. Surprisingly, a lack of green in this lineup, but the colors and finishes were still so pretty. And the last collection that I have for April was Goodnight Polish's Spaceballs, the Nail Polish collection, which is obviously inspired by the movie Spaceballs. And it was just a really fun lineup, kind of very space themed, very dark, you know, so it's very different for the time of year. Finally, moving on to May, we start to see more of the summer collections come out. So the first one that I have is Cracked Polish's Summer Oasis. This was such a beautiful lineup. Like, I just personally really love this color palette. We got a bright sunshine yellow jelly, a neon coral cream, a gorgeous soft pink shimmer, and a couple of flaky polishes, but each of them were a very different formula from the other. So it still just felt like a lot of variety for this lineup. For even more flakies, Island P gave us their Euphoric collection, which was the first summer collection of the season. Well, I guess half of these were flakies and then the other half were kind of shimmer polishes, but we saw some siblings to some famous fan favorite shades like Flower Child or Fairy Dust. So we got shades like Dopamine and Wavelength, which are just so much more vibrant and intense. And again, the flakies in this lineup too were just so incredibly sparkly. For a bit of a palette cleanser, Olive Ave gave us their Treats collection, which were inspired by summer treats in a super cute lineup of these corally pink shades and a couple of blues and purples, all in these like cream finishes. Then Glitch gave us their Pride collection, which was a massive lineup. I feel like there were a lot of magnetics in this one. And overall, the color palette was a little bit darker darker than what I would normally expect for like a rainbow pride collection, but it was just so stunning. For some more bright shades, we got Holo Taco's Pop of Holo collection, which consisted of these linear holographics, some of them being a combination formula of linear holos and shimmers. And they also came out with a new topper that had this blue sort of iridescent or matte sort of glitter. And lastly for May, we got Apocalypse Polish with their Not a Kids Show collection, which I think is such a fun theme, obviously inspired by TV shows that we were all watching when we were growing up that we maybe shouldn't have been, you know, like there's always those little inside jokes that are for the adults, but this was such a cool lineup, a beautiful array of finishes that I feel like were mainly sort of flaky, kind of jelly-based polishes. And finally, for the month of June, the first collection I have is Tyler's Trinkets, The Queer Dictionary, which obviously is for Pride. This was a rainbow lineup of the same finish that was kind of this like really opaque metallic sort of base that had this shimmer and black flaky in there. Then we saw another collection from IL&P with their Socialite collection. This one was just a small trio and they were really pretty. Like two of them were these ultra metallic magnetic combination finishes, while the last one was like just a magnetic, having this more sophisticated, glam, luxurious vibe. Cracked gave us their In the Tropics collection, which was another summer lineup, but this one was a little bit darker and like hotter in a way. Like you really get those hot tropical kind of feels from this color palette. And I'm pretty sure the majority, if not all of these colors were basically 2.0 versions or revamped shades from previously discontinued shades. Then we got an all jelly lineup from Morgan Taylor with their Keep It Juicy collection. I was so excited about this one because I was just not expecting to see jellies from Morgan Taylor. And spoiler alert, if you have not watched my video review on it, you should, because they are amazing. It's not quite a rainbow color palette, but there are like the main colors of a rainbow, but still kind of like inconsistent shades where some of them are really bright, like there's just one true neon, and then two of them are really dark, almost, you know, fall or winter kind of colors. For a much more satisfying lineup, Holo Taco gave us the Coastal Cremes collection, which consisted of 7 creme polishes in these really beautiful shades. Like I know a lot of people, you know, even myself included, initially thought that they were just giving very familiar vibes, like that they're kind of duping their own catalog. But after sharing the comparisons, like they are very different after all. And I think even the ones that are kind of similar, people have said that like the originals just didn't have great formulas. So I'm always a fan of like bringing back a previously discontinued shade if it's gonna be an improvement. And of course, shortly after that, we got another cream lineup from IL&P. So this is the second release that they gave us in June with their throwback collection. And these had like a much more vibrant neon color palette, sort of giving these 80s or 90s like color blocking inspiration or vibes. So definitely a lot of creams here, but super gorgeous all around. And the last collection that I have for June is Goodnight Polishes from the Underworld to Olympus, which was another sort of small lineup from them. This one had 5 polishes with an obvious Greek mythology theme, not only covering the journey of, you know, the underworld to Olympus, but also having this sort of like day to night theme. And that pretty much wraps up 2026 so far. Again, I know there are so many other brands and collections that have come out that I didn't feature in this video. Like I said in the intro, it's already a lot to keep track of, like all of the brands that I just personally review and share on my channel. So to keep track of the other ones that are coming out, it just can be a lot. But I'm not trying to like exclude any brands, especially when it comes time for voting later in the year when I send out my surveys, so that way you can vote on your favorites for the awards. So just for reference, I do plan on including some other brands like Bee's Knees, Polish for Days, KB Shimmer, maybe a few others as well, because I also don't want these surveys to be like super clogged, because as you saw or heard, there are a ton of brands that are going to be included. And especially when it comes to things like, the best summer collection, there's already like 20 collections to choose from that I shared in this video alone. So I guess let me know what brands you would definitely want me to include in these kind of recap videos, and especially, or more specifically, to include in the surveys so you can vote for them. And if you happen to also be keeping track of these things, feel free to leave a comment with, for example, Bee's Knees Lacquer and a list of all their collections that have come out so far, because then that would make my life a little bit easier. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this look back on the year so far. It is absolutely insane to think that July is just a couple of days away. The months have been going by so fast, and I feel like part of that is because I'm just constantly busy swatching and reviewing all of these collections, but they are so pretty. So let me know if there are any collections that have come out that you forgot about, or just let me know any thoughts you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!